Okay, so hello, Dara. Dara Shaa. Now is
Hello.
your new name. Yeah, I don't know so much about you. I'm calling from Berlin, actually, here from my little praxis or therapy studio, and this is also what we want to talk about.
Mhm.
Yeah, and yeah, I got to know Shara in an incredible initiation we did like a month ago, I think, 1.5 months ago. It's a little
Something like that, yes.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's been pretty, yeah, a little bit shocking almost to my system, this initiation in a very good way. And yeah, I have followed Dara before a little bit online. I know that you're an incredible writer, like your texts and also like your way of using words is pretty impressive and pretty yeah, touching for me. And I think for many people, you have a lot of follower online. I know that you're an incredible singer also. So I've heard you sing, and I've just heard also in a video that that's also what you do in life. I'm not sure how intensively you do it, but yeah, I can still recall the moment when you sang for us in the initiation, and I was actually like, wow. I thought it's a song. I thought it's a ready song. And then at some point I realized, oh my God, she's doing that live. And I was like, wow.
Yes.
Incredible. Yeah. Yeah. And also you have been hosting transformational, I don't know, spaces together with your partners in the whole world, traveling the whole world for many years around sexuality. That's mainly what I know. I haven't attended one of these spaces, but that's what I kind of found out about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And since you have an incredibly deep knowledge around, I think also therapeutical methods and everything connected to like personal transformation, and now like having kind of closed that chapter as I understood it, and having moved to something slightly different, and that is more the focus on collective transformation, as I understand it.
Mm.
And I have a similar development in my life. Like I work as a therapist. I love my work. I've done a lot of personal transformation in my life, and I also still continue to do it. And I moved to, or I was part of the founding group of a community. So I've yeah, been building up a community in the last 2.5 years. And that is very much about the collective
Mhm.
and the idea, can we serve? Are we able to serve as individuals who have personal wishes, personal trauma, personal limitations? Are we able to give ourselves to an idea that is bigger than us? That's a very big question we are dealing with in the community. And very often we are not. That is my
Mm.
experience, that many of the group members, a few, it's very interesting, have this spark of collective serving. Either they are born with it, they brought it onto this earth. I don't know, maybe it's a new thing of a new generation, or they have done very much personal development, and then at some point this opened, this I can serve.
Mhm.
But many people are stuck in personal trauma, and then it's very
Yes.
interesting, you cannot really form a group that serves something when people are stuck in personal trauma. And
Yes.
yeah, through all this background, I just was inspired to have this conversation with you. Yeah, because the initiation really sparked a kind of consciousness of service, or that I haven't known before.
Yeah. So maybe I can speak to that a little bit. I think there is no field of transformation that is just personal or is just collective. In reality, they are actually the same. However, we have a bit of a tendency in our culture to be very obsessed with self, because the self is so hurt, because the self is so little nourished, because we lived in generations and generations of trauma that puts itself on top of trauma and trauma and trauma. Now we're living in a culture where we're actually noticing that more and more. There's more trauma awareness. There's more people knowing, oh shit, maybe I'm actually not that great. I need to go therapy. I need to do something. I need to shift. I need to change. And after me, myself, having done a lot of the work in the self-development in different kind of therapeutic methods, worked a lot with sexuality, because I felt that was one of the kind of fastest way to transformation, because sexual energy, this is like my background, is such a big energy. It's so intensely huge, it's the force of creation, right? It's where we all come from. So if we're looking at the roots of pain, if we're looking at the roots of our suppression, I've always felt like if I go to sexuality, it's just, this is going to really, help me to throw out so much of my trauma, because it's like the most intense fuel that I have in my body if I use that. And I went on a really deep exploration, did a lot of women's work, and really discovered my body and taught that. And it was an amazing topic. It's especially around self-pleasure. I discovered how self-pleasure can be so amazingly transformational for the human body, because it's like when we shift our idea of what masturbation is, which is very dirty in most people's mind, but and we make it a self-loving practice, we make it like a worship for my body. It is like a reflection to how I can learn where I'm holding pain, where I'm holding trauma, where I'm rejecting my body, where I don't like to look at myself in the mirror of my own pleasure. Like, can I face all of me in pleasure? It's not even, there's a lot that comes up through this practice. So I went through this huge journey of really like discovering sexuality as this massive gateway, transformational spaces where people go to. There was a lot of injury happening or re-traumatization, because exactly of the fact that sexuality is very, very strong, and most people do not have the right tools to regulate themselves. They don't have the tools to breathe when they need to breathe, and they just go back into and so many, I sat in lots of women's circles, so many, and it's pretty much like 1 in 3 women that tells a story of abuse. So there's so much abuse in our bodies, and this is not just the women. I've also heard this from men, and sometimes more than we imagine. Like, we see the masculine, or the men, they're kind of doing the perpetrating thing, but actually they've also so many of them have been horribly abused in their lifetime. From like, I remember a very strong moment where, I know I'm kind of diverting into sexuality, but I just want to move that back into why I'm now where I am. And I sat in the circle, and the men shared their stories, and I was like, I dropped to my knees. I cried my eyes out. It was something so deeply touching and horrible. So we are all so very, very, or there's so much trauma, so much potential of trauma, and even the collective trauma that is locked into our genitals. So doing that work, I saw that there's also a lot of potential for harm there when we use this as a transformational tool and we walk with it too fast. There's a reason why Tantra, which is the science of sexuality, basically of the East, it was actually a very secret path. It wasn't something that the commoner could just pick up and like go try to do, because the energy is like a fire, and when you bring it up too fast, it can burn your nervous system. And this is also what I do see collectively at the moment. So it is an amazing path if you're really ready to take on a lot. However, it's a very dangerous path, and also at some point I felt like I was just running the same route. Like I was a bit like a rat in these things, running. It just turns itself around. Like at some point you have the lessons that you need from it, and then it's like, what now? Now I have kind of freed myself, I feel liberated, I feel like I can express, I can talk, I can feel really deeply, I can feel it all, and I can still breathe and I can stay open. But what do I do with this energy now? Okay, now what is life about? And then this question of service comes really strong. And in some way, my life, just through this new work with Itay, who's I call him a mystic, a modern mystic, because his way of speaking and his way of bringing knowledge is like a mystical way. There's a lot of paradox in it, which makes it so powerful, because nothing in life is really just one truth. We need to see that there's, like, when somebody finds the paradox in everything, you know that they have tapped into something. So he's downloaded, or he's received a work that goes very much through the body and is an initiation work. So what is initiation? It's something that we're lacking completely in our society. When we go back to the cultures who live in the, indigenous cultures, they have initiation rituals where you get initiated to become woman, where you initiated to get man. And what is happening, you might need to go out for 3 days into the wild and face yourself, and you're alone and you have to survive, and you will, because this is the nature of this initiation ritual. It will leave you changed when you get out of this, having to step up as human. And nobody asks you while you're out there in the forest if you have trauma, because it is survival. Like, you just need to step up and become the man that you're supposed to be, so you then can be in service of the community, because the community needs you in your strength. It doesn't need you completely in your little self. So initiation is something that happened to us very naturally when we used to live more in contact with nature. It was just something that was organized by the community for the community. The reason why most communities nowadays have trouble with how you shared right now, stepping into service, is because we don't really have these initiation rituals as part of our culture. Not really, we just don't have them. So we have a bunch of people who are very consumed with their own pain and their trauma, which is in some way great, because we're having this better awareness of how we are as humans. Like, I'm actually broken, and I need to look at that. I need to learn some things about myself. I'm not just ego, and I can't just go out into this world and trample on everybody, or I can't just be in the corner and think myself really small, which is the two ways that the ego usually kind of, pretends to be. We're learning better that we are not so healthy. But from that point on, at some point when you go into that healing has a different kind of, it's like you go into different rooms, you discover this about yourself, then you go into another room, you discover this, maybe you learn some strategies to deal with some kind of pain, you learn how to communicate better, you learn how to manage your relationships in a different way. This is all in the realm of healing. It's very powerful, and we need these tools. Initiation, however, and I described it yesterday in some post, is more like a radical remission. So you actually, and a radical remission, for those who don't know, is like when you have cancer, for example, and you make something really powerful, or you have a really powerful realization, or you go to some healer, and all of a sudden the next day you're healed. It's like from one day or another, where, like, it's a very short time that your body heals. And in some way, we don't really have an equivalent of that happening in the realm of psychosis or in the realm of neural wiring. We don't really experience that so much, that somebody literally has, like, from one to another, this experience of like, wow, and I shed it all and I came back into a world and it's different now. I'm no longer feeling like my mind is pulling me. But initiation is actually that. It is really the call to nervous system, like change the nervous system, not just a call. It does that. It did that to me. I still am in a lot of conversation with a lot of the people that have attended our last initiations, and they continue to have these experiences where they experience themselves as if there was a radical remission. There was like, oh, I used to be like that, but I'm no longer like that. But this wasn't because I learned something in the initiation that was like conceptual. It's like, oh, I should not react like that. It's not a coping strategy. It's not something that I learned. It's just something that is present now because my nervous system has a new starting point. It's no longer contracted so much in the pain. As long as I keep going with the practice, my body keeps opening that field more for myself. So and just to make the long story round from sexuality to this work now, I wouldn't say that it is entirely just collective healing. It is in the name of the collective, which makes the let's say the impulse stronger. Because if we're really connecting to the pain of the world, like if Itay said something so beautiful on our last initiation, is that it usually takes us about 3 seconds to kind of feel the pain of the world and dissociate. Because if I really go into the thing of how many wars on the planet, how much we're ripping the forest apart, how the oceans are destroyed, if I really like start to face that, it's so much that most people are like, oh, okay. And then I bought a car, and you know, about my own trauma, I spent years and years and years and years and years circling around these kind of topics, not letting it go, because we also have a certain kind of warm relationship with our trauma. Like, it feels good when you get there. You can get lost in it. So I think why we are lacking that step into initiation is because we don't really know that it exists, and because we don't really connect to the pain of the world. If we do, if we don't numb ourselves to that, then it becomes great fuel. It becomes amazing. It becomes this real connection to purpose, you know, when we connect to, I'm not just here for me. I'm not just here even for my daughter. I am, but also for all the other children on this planet. I'm here for them.
Yeah, that was a lot of very vast. What I feel is when reflecting on what you said also, therapy is also part of a sick culture, you know. It comes from a sick culture, whereas initiation comes from ancient culture. And what I noticed after the initiation is I can barely stand the sick culture. Like when I land in my community, and it doesn't matter how much trouble they had, like I could stand my community because it was community. It is like embedded in a story that makes sense for me, you know. There is everything around, there's people around, there's children around, we share everything. I mean, we fight a lot, yes, but it's like kind of embedded in a context and nature and a bigger idea, and we try to feel the pain of the world, and it's already connected. It's connected. Yes. We try to connect with each other. It's connected to the world, and we fuck up in it all the time, but it kind of is, you know. Whereas when I'm sitting here in Berlin, and I live part-time in the community, and I work in Berlin, and I still have this apartment where I'm alone sometimes, you know, and then I'm sitting here alone in this apartment, and I still remember this life, and many people live this life. They live this life separated in a city, and there is no connection, and it's super hard, even with the experience of the initiation, yes, to feel the meaning of life in it, because I'm kind of very often, you know, I have this energy of the tiger in me, of the hunter, and after the initiation there was so much fucking energy, and I was like, what to do with it? Like and even I was a bit more independent of anyone, because then I just went outside and I just started singing, and these very spontaneous songs came out of my body, and I just danced through life, and I was just happy without any reason. And yet I felt like I need people, like I need the whole society to kind of change, to put it in a context. And that's where I struggle, and that's where I notice I still need therapy, you know, because now I'm sitting in front of my computer, and I feel like my computer doesn't really make sense, like and I don't know.
Tell me all about it. The computers, I mean, for me, everything technology-wise has been completely shredded in the last couple of weeks. It's crazy. I don't even want to go there, but it's like I'm afraid to even touch it because I'm probably just going to run into another error somewhere. It's been crazy. So in some way, the initiation doesn't necessarily just, it does clean it, but you have, like, afterwards it will bring you a lot of the things that might not entirely be in its place, and it will highlight them a lot. It did that for me, the lesson around organization and how strong I need to really be, and I can't make half choices. Like when you initiate yourself to something different, then afterwards every choice of you become, like, that's for me, every choice that I made became so painfully like manifested the next day. So any avoidant choice that I would have made, that I, maybe my old self would like go, oh, I don't really need to take care of that communication, I would get kicked in the butt straight away, and not in 2 years, not in 2 weeks, but like the next day or in the next hour. I would always feel the result of my non-initiated choices if I didn't choose them, if I didn't choose the right, which I knew, because that's what something that happens quite strongly for me after the initiation, that I feel so much in my sovereign self. I know exactly what are the right choices and I know exactly what are the wrong choices, because it's just like very clear. But if the old comes back and kind of does the I go that way because I'm just used to that, then it will pay back. There is, of course, we have responsibility. We have responsibility after any kind of event, after any kind of healing, to keep the frequency and to, I wouldn't say prove, but in some way to prove to the universe that we are still in this frequency, that we are still worthy of, not worthy in the sense that I'm not worthy, we're all incredibly worthy of feeling, but the proof of that comes from choice. Like every single one of my choices is a ripple effect out into the universe, into the world, into the humans that are around me, every single one of my choices. And that's what's so much at the heart of the initiation, right? We're learning, or what we've learned is action as medicine, action that is not coming from the mind, overactive mind. Oh, should I do this? Should I not do it? I don't know, maybe. What's the consequences if I do? Like actually action that takes you out of your comfort zone all the time is the most powerful action. But it is difficult to say that to somebody who hasn't gone through an initiation, because if they go through that and they say, okay, I'm just going to act, they're probably just going to go from the mind, and those choices aren't the right choices. So it needs this deep connection to self, which is so difficult, as you say, when we live in a society that is compartmentalized, apartments, everybody's living in their apartments, which is apart from each other. To come back to that knowing. And yes, that's why we're kind of we're needing to create culture now, and you're doing that so beautifully with your community. You have people who are, who are trying to figure this out. We're not going to have the most amazing blueprint of how to live in community in this lifetime. I think we're just learning, we're like little babies. We're still trying to figure out relationship. So community is like being in a relationship with however many people are in your community. It's like it's next level job, Yes, there's a lot to learn. However, it is really the only way to it's like a needle, the needle, the hole of the needle, where we have to all go through that, which is the recognition of taking care of yourself in the way that you know what's going on for you, that you have a past body, and then taking responsive action forward rather than backwards, which is maybe what you say, therapy is a bit part of a toxic culture as well. Like we're very backward orientated. We're just in our maybe consumeristic, we're looking forward, we're like consuming, because we're not really integrated with a real proper future, with something that lasts, with this idea of 7 generations forward, with this idea of taking care of the planet, because it's not just for me. Even though even the awakened ones, even the ones that, like you do work, we keep losing sometimes the There's some choices that I make, they're not entirely right now, if I really look at the grand picture, because it's almost impossible in our culture. Like I cannot go to this shop, that shop, this shop, if I really take everything into consideration. But we need to like stepping stones, step by step by step. And one of the big steps is really to be in community and learn the art of service with each other. And not to be so caught up in self, that it's a trap of the mind as well. It's a trap to be consumed by your emotions. One of the things that helped me a lot was like, don't be busy with a field of emotion. I've learned to feel. Like I'm really quite a strong feeler. I've always been super sensitive. And then there's this idea in new age spirituality, like, oh yeah, we need to feel everything and we need to be really deep and feel it. Yes, that's good. For the beginning, we need to learn that, because a lot of people, including myself, I couldn't feel my anger, for example. I had no connection to it. I didn't know how to express it. So I needed to feel it. I needed to learn how to channel it through my body. But then at some point, it's like, how many more anger release sessions do I need to get this anger out of my body? It will never stop, because this is in my cells, and the cell memory will not release completely ever, unless I make an initiation, unless I clean this from my cells. And then even now, when I have anger, it's like, oh yeah, I can scream, I can cry a little bit, but it's no longer that. I'm no longer in this victim state of my emotions. I'm no longer pulled into, oh, it's like life is so hard. There's difference between emotion, which is usually 90 seconds, needs 90 seconds in your body to release, and then the attached story that I can go to. And that's where initiation does, no longer. You can feel, of course, but now what? Now where do you go? Now what medicine do we need? Medicine forward. So when you feel alone, for example, in your where you feel that separation, the invitation is to then go into giving your three bodies, as we did in the initiation, this practice where we give our bodies medicine. We give the past body medicine, the present body and the future body, different kinds of medicines that come out of the realm of the mystic. They're not like something that I will analyze or even have to understand. I will just give them actions. I will give them movements. I will give what they want, and it begins to change more and more and more this feeling of separation, because in reality you are not. Yes, life shows us that, but we are not separate. We are so intrinsically connected, and that's
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things I took out of the initiation. And we talk as spiritual people a lot about no mind, and in the end we read about it and we think about it and we kind of make it a mind thing again,
Exactly.
And having had many years of spiritual practice, I still followed my mind a lot, and that was really and I think I'm pretty good in that, because I'm a natural body being. Like I love body consciousness much more than mind consciousness, and still there's very often a trap in that, and there's still hidden agendas of your mind that dictate how you see life and dictate how you act and dictate how much possibility you have in acting. And this radical step out of your mind, like really radically, I took out of it, and I also brought much more powerfully in my work with clients. And I think I would like to speak a bit for maybe listeners, because the topic is like therapy versus initiation. Is there difference? What's the difference? When is what needed? A little bit practical, because now we've spoken a lot on the society level also, and one of the things what therapy does, and therapy is a very wide expression already. I do very deep work. I wouldn't say it's necessarily therapy. I don't do talking therapy. I never thought this is helping anyone. I do hypnotherapy, and I work with body, and I do constellation work. So I already go very deep down. And yet I have the role a little bit of the mother, and I feel that is necessary at some step in the development of people to make this experience the first time in their lives that they are seen, the first time in their lives in these deepest parts, like, hey, there is love. It's possible to receive love in that place, you know, and that is very often a big turning point in them, like really a milestone. And I wonder, can people, because you invite people to your initiation without any expectation for experience in personal developmental, but whatever work, yeah, and I'm just wondering if this can, because it was an intense experience for me, and I am pretty experienced in this work, and yeah, I just wonder, can you really überspringen? Can you
jump over
the step of the self being really seen and strengthened in that, you know, the ego needs to be strong before you can drop it and go into service somehow. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. It's a beautiful question, and I've thought about it a lot, and also with Itay we've looked at. But in reality, the people that come or have come, they're from all places, from having done a lot of work, from not having done a lot of work. I had people who have done a lot of work, and for them it was an incredible challenging experience, because their mind was so strong, their spiritual mind especially was so strong on holding on to all these concepts, like, no, we're doing breathing now, we're doing this now, trying to understand constantly, and then pulling yourself out of the experience constantly, while somebody who might be very new to this comes in there, totally throws themselves in, because they're like, they don't have any past with all this spiritual concepts, and they're like having massive openings. But I also had the other experience where people who've done a lot of work, they actually had huge breakthroughs. Like they finally felt like they've come to the point that they've been looking for years while running in the circle of the self-development. You know, they've done it, I've done it all, is there anything new? And then they come here and it's like, whoa, this is the thing that I've been looking for. And then also maybe people who are not experienced and has very mentally here, very active mentally, so they might have to come again, you know, because it's like, and I've seen that as well, and people who come again, that they have then they work themselves really deeply into the process. So I don't think there is I don't even want to do a real selection process, because we do sometimes speak with people and we evaluate if it's good for them, so that is also there. But I cannot say, oh yeah, if you're experienced in this, you're going to go right, or if you're not experienced, that's not going to be for you, because it can go all sorts of ways. Generally, it's really about how much you're attached to your mental activity. How much are you ready to let go of that? How much are you ready to? Because it's the initiation is in reality is an opening for being able to receive energy, receive vision, receive medicine, receive words. My language changed after I did the initiation. My physical vocabulary and my body vocabulary changed. I had different dance moves that were not from the initiation. I have felt my body dancing in a way that I'd never danced before. I was more in this kind of internal bubble of feeling all the energies around me that was just like, that just happened. And my language, the way I spoke, was like, whoa, there's different words coming out of me now that I didn't hear there. They're just different. So it is maybe the only turning point is how much are you willing to, or how much pain do you have with your own mind, and how much are you willing to let it go? Because then when you do, you can come from any point and you will have an experience, which is in our society quite a big thing, right? Because we're very cognitively driven in terms of the frontal mind. We're like analytical people, and the analytical crust is a big thing. But even your work, as you just described it, the form of therapy that you're doing is actually quite close to the work of the initiation, because it is working with the realm of the mystic. It's working with the realm of archetypes. When you do hypnotherapy and constellation, I think constellation is one of the closest things out there that are towards initiation, because it just has this kind of magical realm to it, right? The only thing maybe that's not so deep is that the body isn't that much involved. I've done a lot of different kinds of constellation works myself, not hold, I just attended. And I think it's an amazing space. You know, there's so much that can lift and work and shift. And so it's quite a similar realm actually of work. So, but to come back to your question of this mother or the human that takes on this role, the therapist that takes on this role for the traumatized human, to give them the first time in their life, like, oh, wow, I'm seen and actually felt, I'm hugged. Yeah, these are very important, and these modalities need to be here on this planet right now. Like, it's not about eradicating them or saying, oh, they're not good, or we just have initiation. I think it's really important we have both. We have the rooms, the fields where people learn to be loved, where they can have this experience of, oh my God, I'm seen. And also where we continue to do that, because the reason why we have the need for this is because we have a sick society that has sick parents that don't know how to parent, because we can make a child faster than an omelet, right? Like, there's no parent course that we need to do. We can just jump with somebody into bed, and then we're pregnant, and then oops, there's a child. So we don't have a lot of knowledge around that, and we don't live in community. I'm myself a mother, and I've lived for the last 9 years. I've tried as much as possible to live in certain kind of pop-up communities here, there, everywhere, because for me it's impossible to live with a child without the support of community. And you know that when you have children, but most of our society has just kind of learned to cope as well there with that. Okay, we're just mother, father, and 2 children, and we're just going to cope in this small flat and an apartment, and we're going to just throw them off into kindergarten and get them into school, and it's somehow just going to get them through life. When in reality, my child is actually homeschooled, unschooled, or a free learner. So she's never gone through the system, and she's constantly in contact with community when she's with me. So it's a massive challenge as well for me. It's like not easy as a parent to have to work and have your child at home, and she needs constant inspiration and all of these things that I want to give her as well, right? So community becomes a necessity when you make that choice. When you make that choice to say, okay, I want to be more sovereign in this world, and I'm a mother, I need to find my ways. I need to find solutions for that. So yeah, the reason why we have people who need to be seen is because they've never been seen. In an indigenous culture that has a community that is really tightly supported, the children run to all the different people, get seen, get loved, maybe get traumatized as well. I'm not, taking that out, but it's probably more held in a community that is in some way more connected. And so, yes, we need to do that healing work. We need to do the cleaning. We need to do the loving. We need to receive that. And at the same time, we also need to step into our collective potential as humans and into the kind of heroes that we are. There's a lot of movies that we like consume all the time. Oh, this guy was so heroic and this person is so heroic. In reality, we're all asked to step into that. Like, we are all heroes. Nobody is small and insignificant. In our ways, we can step into that. And that's more the work of initiation, like really strengthening my feet on the earth, my choices as the right choices, because I know, not because this guy told me I need to do this, because I know that this is the right choice for me, my community, my children, for the animals, for the planet. That is the nature of initiation.
Yeah. And therapy, or let's say one-on-one work, can never be a substitute for a powerful group field like I've experienced it in the initiation. And what I want to really recommend this initiation and this work a lot. What was very auffällig, what was very a big part was the physical activity. We were really challenged in a physical way. And I think nowadays we are not so challenged in a physical way anymore. And for me, that was just a huge element where I always feel like I cannot give that to my clients. I just cannot give that to them. And yeah, and also, yeah, what I wanted to say is that the children in our community, for example, like I noticed how my own system opened to the children as a first step with inner child work, when I could connect to my inner child better. And it's much more difficult to connect to a child that is not yours. Yeah. So I had to work through the layers of my own past. And then the next layer was the initiation, who opened the field towards the children, another huge step for me. And I was really experiencing the children as my own children the first time. And I was closed to children, like I wasn't interested in them. I couldn't see them. I couldn't, because I couldn't see myself. And I also couldn't step out of the consciousness of mine and yours. It's my child, it's your child. We kind of own them. So I was still living in that. And so, yeah, that's really an incredibly meaningful work, both the inner child's work and this initiation work. It's like a huge shift. And if we all would shift like that, you know, we could actually open to these children of our world. And I think normally the initiation is becoming a mother, where this opens more naturally. And I just want to say the initiation opened it for me. And yeah.
How beautiful. Yes, I actually described it to somebody on the phone the other day, that in some way it is like a mothering, like a motherhood initiation or fatherhood initiation, even when you're not a father or a mother, because that's what we're lacking as parents, whether you're one or not. We're lacking to be parent of this planet. We're lacking to be parent of, to be in the parental position. We are all these hurt little children. As you said, we need to do this inner child work, because most of the people that I see running around in the society, and I mean 90%, are like little children locked in an adult body, and they don't even know that they are. Most people don't even know yet that they are. So there's now a 5% or something like that of us that really know that they are these little children, and we're doing the work with them. And then at some point there's this like, okay, when the birth happens, when the baby's out, like nobody could prepare me for the time after the birth. There was nothing that could have, no book that I could read that could have led me to actually being a parent. I just needed to birth that child and then be the parent that I was. And I learned and I stumbled and I made mistakes, and I also did amazing things. So it is, this is one of the most natural forms of initiation that happen in our society. And I think it's one of the most powerful, even through an initiation like that we learn that to be parent is one of the most so to be a parent, when you step into parent, you just give. Like this energy that we learn to give beyond what we thought is we are capable. We step out of self. We take the self out of self-development, and we are developing a child. We're developing the world. We're developing a project. We're developing a dream. Like when you come into that point where it's not so important that you had this trauma. Yes, this trauma will always be there. But then you step into the recognition that you are here to nurture. Just like the earth is here nurturing us all the time. I am here to nurture. I'm here to give. I'm here to birth constantly, because that's the energy of nature. Life is constantly circling through us. When we get ourselves against that, when we say, but I need to receive, but I don't have enough, I'm not enough, I need more, we move ourselves against nature, which is what we're seeing in our planet everywhere, or in the culture of our humans. And that's where we cut ourselves off. But learning to give is at the root of initiation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that would actually be a nice closing word, and yet I wanted to ask one last question.
Sure, go ahead.
For one last question. And it's a very interesting thing that happened to me after the initiation. Is like I didn't have sex drive anymore. It was just gone. And I'm a very sexual being. I love to go to spaces where open sexuality, or at least like a prayer to the body, was celebrated in combination with spiritual work. And yeah, it was a big part of my life, you know, to practice sexuality, and I felt very free in it. And after the initiation, it was just gone, and I have no interest anymore at the moment, at least. Maybe it comes back, you know, I have no idea, but at the moment I have no interest in yeah, these spaces somehow. And
well, I went through something similar.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit, because I feel a lot of power in me, and I feel a lot of like life force, you know, but without this need to be met in it by another body somehow, or without the need to express it in this sexual yeah, in this sexual activity somehow. And
Yes.
yeah, maybe you can say something to that.
I would love to. Yes, I think it's the sexual field has really opened in the last years, and there's a lot of events and people going there because it's very attractive, of course, and because of the power of the energy that's in our genitals, as I spoke. And it's actually a nice coming back to full circle from how I started. And in some way, it can also be an avoidance strategy to go there, because it's very exciting, and it can keep us circling around our own pleasure and our own excitement, and it keeps putting us back into self, right? It's like, I want to live my desires, I want to just be met, I want to receive, I want to be there, I want to be touched, I want to be, it's so yummy here, it's also delicious, it's beautiful. And yes, we need these spaces to nourish ourselves, and we need to learn how to be in sexuality. And if you want to do free open love, yes, go and do these things, but be aware of the trap that it can just you can just begin to circle yourself in a washing machine, and you just stay in this realm. And for me, there was always this question, like, yes, okay, I open my body, yes, I want to feel more power, yes, I have it now, but what do I do with this now? What do I do with this energy? Like, it must go somewhere. I don't want to just keep circling it around my pleasure. Then it becomes hedonism. Then I'm just consumed with the next hit of, it's like a drug. Then, you know, it's not really for if it's not for elevating consciousness, why am I doing it for? Like, if it's not for me liberating myself from my fears, or where I'm maybe contracted, or why I can't let go of this, or jealousy, or whatever, if it's not for that, why am I doing it? Like, I know how to have pleasure, and it's a beautiful experience, but do I have to continually get addicted to these spaces? So at some point they lost their hype, you know, when you've seen a couple of people make love in the same room, and you just walked around, and it's like, okay, this is nice. I can make a tick on that. And now what? Where do I go? The same was for me with open relating. I dived really deep. I had all the experiences. I like had the most greatest it was an initiative moment to recognize and have my partner be with somebody else and be super open in that and have no jealousy. It was an amazing moment. And then I was like, okay, I can do this now. Now what? Like, now what? Where do I go from here? Because I don't need that all the time in my field. I don't need to be exposed to this all the time. I actually want to be in service. So where does this energy go? So the sexuality field is powerful, yet I think it would even be more powerful if we are more initiated and then meet in these spaces, because then we're no longer circling around each other, and we can begin to really use this energy forward for creation, for solving the issues that we're having in our little communities, in our relationships with our children. It doesn't always have to be grand. Like, collective consciousness or collective healing doesn't mean I have to go out and transform the whole world. It means where I am with the people that are around me, can I give them the messages? Can I give myself the messages that we need? Not the enveloped in my drama. Because in sexuality, also in these fields, I don't know, you've probably seen it. It's like, oh my God, drama here, there, left, right, explosions. It's this addiction to intensity that gets fed a lot there, that I've uncovered a lot for myself. It's like, wow, I'm constantly wanting to feel alive, so I get it from drama. And I create situations that I think I'm really free, and I'm like creating these experiences where I'm having to prove myself free, but in reality I'm just feeding an addiction to be constantly stimulated in my nervous system, and that doesn't leave me enough time or space or energy to actually do the real work that I want to do. So it can be a trap, and we have to be very careful with that.
Totally. I also experienced it as a lot of distraction, and I also saw a lot of shadow there, like the community not really being aware of it, and sometimes even masking it in we serve, actually, you know, by celebrating errors, we serve the world, and it kind of is a service because we free the errors from all the conditioning and all the taboo that is trapped in it. But then at the same time, as you say, it becomes like a Selbstzweck, kind of a hedonism in itself, where you jump in it again and again, to feel the intensity, and then you're in the same trap of distracting yourself from the actual work. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But yes, we must celebrate everything. We must celebrate errors. We must celebrate our power. We must celebrate each other. It's a beautiful medicine for the world. Celebration is the best way. And I will not I will not judge any sexuality field from that point. I just say there's a trap in there. We need to be aware of it. We need to, like, I think anybody who goes through the full process of initiation through sexuality will at some point come to this point where it's like, okay, and now what do I do with this energy? Where do I go with it? And if you don't, then if you don't come to that point, you might not get the right medicine from the sexuality field, or you're not around the right teachers, you know, because it is really for liberation. It is not just to you know, just to be in your bed and be super, super comfortable all the time. When we are in the field of transformation, we have to constantly be terrified. Not terrified out of like the kind of fear, but the fear of like the reverence of God. If you feel that constantly in there, like, God is with me here, I am on this planet, I'm in this body right this moment, I have so much to do. If I'm in this reverent state, then I don't get too caught up in these traps of the mind and the traps of the ego and the traps of the drama, because I'm here, we are here, let's do this, let's act. And one thing, I think also this is very time sensitive. Like, we are in a very strong time. I don't really need to say it, but somehow we do need to say it. This medicine of initiation is very practical for this time, because we don't have so much time. Like, we've done a lot of damage to our planet, to our society. And if we want to turn it around and not end up in a super completely technologized world where nobody's connected to themselves anymore, this work is very, very important. And it's calling us to step up and out and in.
Yeah, thank you. And there is a trap in that, the trap of pressure. I have to say the trap of pressure, and we have to say the world is can create a little bit the same old loop of acting out of I have to do it. I notice that in myself.
Because it's not the same. Yes, it's not the saving of the world, like Mother Teresa or somebody. It's not the I should not look to myself. I need to just give, which is, I'm actually an empty cup and I'm trying to pour my love everywhere. That's entirely wrong. It's really the reverence. It's this like, I am God in flesh, and you know, this is the kind of energy that we can, and then it's natural. That's not even like, oh, the world isn't shit, I need to help them. It's not a saintly work. It's an empowered step of, I see the children and I know what is the right next choice to do. And that might be a small choice, but it's the right one. You know.
Yeah, well, I can feel you, and I want to close with that. It's very powerful when you yourself step into this reverence. I'm like, yes. I want to come there with you. And yeah, maybe for people listening, I will be at the next initiation, and I'm sure I will follow that work for a while, because I'm just in awe, and really want to bring this also to more people and recommend it deeply. And if you want to come in contact with Dara, if you're interested in the initiation, maybe you can just say a few words.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have our website, it's called modernmysticarts.com. You can find the description around that. The next event is in Berlin on the 11th November, but we will also run further ones in the future in case you're watching this later than that. And yes, it's a 3-day initiation. We go for 6 to 8 hours every day, really strongly into the body. We're doing rituals, but not in the way that maybe you're used to. It's a very different kind of ritual structure. It's not about lighting candles or incense. That's really not part of, it's a very body-based structure. We're doing movements together in unison. Sometimes those of you who've watched Avatar, and you see the blue people when they're like in connection and they're swaying and there's this energy flowing, even though that's not exactly what we do, but in some way this is like the image that I get when I try to explain it to people. It's like learning a collective movement, and at the same time there's the birth of then your own very, very sovereign movements that will come from the opening of the collective body. So it's really a deep dive, and we don't take drugs, we don't take any substances, alcohol, nothing, everything is out. It's a very natural way through movement, breath, shamanic drums, rhythm. The ancient and the modern really meet themselves in this 3 days. So it's like take all the ritual, like everything that you maybe the costume of ritual, we strip that all away and we're just doing the essence, which is the energy of ritual. What is initial, or what is starting to birth when you give yourself into a trance state. All of that is very present. All the other things that maybe are like tantric, that you know from tantric rituals or from these worlds of ritual, it's all out. We don't have concepts around that. And then we just dive into the body, by the body, through the body, with the body, and see what emerges. So it's a very, very powerful space that is initiating radical trust. So to fully trust the body and its wisdom when it's open.
Thank you. And it's fucking deep. Like the ancient meets the modern, or even the ancient meets the future. As you said at some point, the ancient future, and I was like, I completely got it, what you said, you know, because it's like stripping apart or like widening your consciousness into both directions and into 3-dimensional space so much. Yeah, it's
just having goosebumps as you're saying. Yes, ancient future is opened, exactly. And when you don't get it, if you don't get it right now, but something in your body feels like, yes, I understand this is the kind of feeling. So it's not something, this work cannot be described very easily, but you usually feel that when there's something inside of you that pulls you towards it, it means that you're ready. So
and I can recommend to just jump, because for me it was like I read it and I was like, yeah, I want to do that, and normally I think about these things a long time, and this time I just booked it, and it was right, it was good that I did it like that.
Yes, probably would have not done it after. Like, oh, what did I do? Yes, and this is exactly also what it will initiate, that you can jump, that you won't be in this limbo all the time with your choices. I'm one of the most, like, I've been the one who is constantly in, limbo of choices, but this has completely ceased for me. I'm like, now I know when, how, what to do. Decisions, clear decisions constantly. Oh, beautiful one. So nice to have this conversation with you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. It was super rich, super deep, super exciting for me. And we latest see each other on the initiation or during the initiation, and maybe we'll have another call sometime if you're interested.
That would be super lovely, of course. Yes.
Okay. Thank
Sending you so much love.
Yeah, you too. Bye. Ciao.